You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm joined by Daylan Flowers, just like I always am, every Monday to talk all things Ole Miss sports. How you doing, Daylan?
I'm doing fantastic, man. School is officially over, so Oxford is a little bit quiet right now, and I'm enjoying every bit of it.
So last week, did you realize how seriously people take our top five list whenever everybody started to talk to you about Shea Patterson?
Yeah, I did, and I put my little rebuttal. I completely forgot about Matty Corral. I really did. And again, that's my young age going at me, and I just remember Shea and how I know his legacy is kind of tarnished here now at Oxford, but I know he was a bad dude for his short stint here. But I experienced how passionate our fans of our Ole Miss team is here and around the world is.
That's the reason I kind of left your top five out of the social media thing. I was just like, I don't want this to spread out beyond the YouTube audience. Because I believed it. If you thought that, that's fine, but I wasn't going to put you through what I knew was coming.
I appreciate it, man. I love you guys. You guys are some big fans. I actually was leaving a baseball game yesterday, and a guy saw me. He was like, you work with Stephen Willis on Locked On Ole Miss. I'm like, yeah, that's me, man. He was like, I love you guys working. I'm like, I appreciate it, man. So we're doing some good things right here, man.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I like on July 2nd, I'm planning on having a meet and greet in around Madison or Flowood. I have no idea how many people is going to show up. There could be 5, there could be 50, but I have no idea what I'm walking into. And in a similar situation, we had one down here in Lakeland, Florida. Like, it's 15 minutes from my house. And I get there and there's like 15 people there for that. So I have no idea what's coming because I expected to go basically have dinner with like one fan who happened to be in town. And it turned out to be 15 people. That was really cool. Shout out to David Holly for that, by the way, as well. So, we're in the transfer portal season right now, and the window closed on April 30th, and everybody's surprised. They want this to kind of be over, but this is not going to be over. It probably won't be over until the end of June. But Ole Miss is recruiting a linebacker right now out of South Alabama. I think there's probably some connection to Yam Banks. His name's Khalil Jacobs, 56 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, really quick twitch player. He's being recruited by Alabama, Auburn, and Missouri as we speak. Ole Miss just got a commitment from Isaiah Hamilton from Houston. He's a corner. He's probably going to be the second corner the moment he steps on campus. He played 750 snaps last season for the Cougars. So I say all that to say this, Daylan, how do you foresee this transfer portal window going for the next 45 or so days?
Like you said, I don't think we're done. I think on the offense side of the ball, I think we've kind of accomplished every check mark we wanted to kind of take off our checklist. I think we upgraded our offensive line in different areas, whether that's pass blocking, run blocking, just size in general. I think our receiving core is one of the best receiving cores in the country. I think our running back room got to the point where we're very excited about it, especially at some point later on in the season when we get a healthy Logan Diggs back. And, of course, our quarterback room is looking well right now. And hopefully we can and I know a lot of people are talking about Austin Simmons as a third string and you never know what can happen in the season. And Austin Simmons has already showed the talent that he can really display on the football field. And so to see him already up and going is really positive for me. But I think our defensive side, don't be surprised this summer if you see a couple 2 or 3 sharp tweets from Pete Golden this summer. I think I was elated with the Isaiah Hamilton transfer coming to Ole Miss. I'm just very excited to have him here and what he brings to the defense. And as well as Khalil Jacobs, I think he is just, if you're a film watcher at all, he's just a guy that stands out to you.
That's a quick twitch dude.
Yeah.
And you put him besides Chris Paul at the linebacker position, and all of a sudden that's the difference between a win this season, I think.
It is because Khalil, and I say this, people go watch some YouTube videos, some film on this guy. He's really good at not only just dropping back into coverage and helping out his linebackers and a receiving going on the slot down the middle, but he's also really good at getting on that line of scrimmage and helping a little bit of the blitz defense as well. He's just a really good football player in general. He just sees the field really well, can play in a lot of different areas for our defense, and I'm excited about him. But like you kind of said, don't think we're done. I think, another linebacker wouldn't be too far off our radar. Maybe even another defensive lineman. I think we have a good tandem of our defensive line, a good mix of transfers and a good mix of incoming freshmen. And as much as I, have my pros and cons about the transfer portal, I think it's always good, especially for us to kind of bring in guys that have a little bit of experience in the college football world, whether that be in a Power 5 conference or below that. I just think it's good for us and what they can bring for our table, especially for our young guys that we hope to prosper in the years following. If maybe they don't get so much of a playing time this year or so much of a vision of what they want this year, for the years coming, they'll be able to learn from guys that have lived and been able to play throughout this college football world for a couple more years than they have. So I don't think we're done. I think that Pete and even guys like Wes Neighbors are maybe trying to look at things that can depict different things against teams we play on the schedule. And I'd like to say one more thing as well, that I don't think we're just going after guys just to be going after them. I think some people may not understand why we go after certain guys. Like, where did Isaiah Hamilton come and some of the things that I've heard, or maybe where's the name Khalil Jacobs come from? And I think that's a good analyzation from some of our coaching staff of looking at our schedule, seeing teams that we play for this upcoming year and seeing what transfers and recruits that they picked up, how they play their games, maybe what new coordinators they have, and kind of adjusting to those things to make sure we're really ready to play every single team we play this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. These transfer portal acquisitions that Ole Miss are going, and they're trying to constantly build their roster, because if you say, hey, we're good enough, we have what we needed, that's the moment where you're probably going to lose your job, because you're always one transfer portal away from just disaster right now.
Yeah, and I attested to Georgia a lot, but that's just because Georgia's become the high standard of football. They have a lot of 5 stars, and they have a lot of 5-star startings, but they have a lot of depth. And it reminds me, kind of before the transfer portal era about Bama. And, Bama had all these guys at every position under Nick Saban. But they had guys that were coming off the bench that were 5 stars too. And I just think that's just a testament to what you have to be really good. And no matter what the circumstance is with today's college football, if you don't have depth, you can't compete. And I truly believe that, because, again, we don't know what in-game situations will happen. We don't know what guys will get injured, what guys will – anything of any sort of nature will happen in the midst of a game. And so you have to be prepared and have the next man up mentality. And if you don't, then it's easy to crumble. And especially in this conference, in this division for this conference, well, not a division anymore, but just the entitlement that we had to play. I mean, we have a favorable schedule, but we still have a Brent Venables OU team coming down here this season that I think could be really good. Of course, the Georgia Bulldogs, we got to go to Death Valley against LSU, South Carolina, and I think a little bit of a trap game against Florida as well, who have a rough schedule. So I don't know how hard it will be going down to Florida, but it will definitely be a difficult game for us as well. So depth is really important, because different guys can bring different specializations to different games, to different teams. And I think that's just important to where we want to go. And where we want to go is to compete for a national championship this year. That is the goal. That's the goal for, I think, myself, for you, and for fans that I've talked to, and even some of the players. Man, the goal is to host a playoff game, win a playoff game, and compete and hopefully win a national championship this year.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we're going to change subjects here real quick, because you mentioned this earlier. You were at the baseball series, and I talked about going into this baseball series that Ole Miss had a math problem, and it wasn't a good one. It was because Ole Miss you needed to win a series against the number 2 ranked team in the country, and then go win a series on the road at LSU. Well, lo and behold, Ole Miss won a series against Texas A&M. And honestly, I wish they would have shown up a little bit and gotten that win on Sunday, because that would have just meant, hey, just go to Baton Rouge and win one game. But the way it is, Ole Miss has to go down and win that series in Baton Rouge. It's probably, at this point, Ole Miss is probably even money whether they do or they don't make an NCAA regional at this point, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to take, just to finish the season off strong, got to go to Hattiesburg in a couple of days to hopefully get some wins off Southern Miss. But LSU just is looking pretty good right now. Just got a series win against Alabama, who's been really good this season as well. I thought this weekend just showed the true potential that we honestly have. It's just, can we execute it? And this Sunday was a bit of a weird one for us. I think Mason Nichols just pitched a really good, first 5 innings, and then it kind of just went downfall for after he got tired. But one thing I would say that I think was really helpful for us winning the first 2 games of this series is we didn't commit a lot of errors. Before Sunday, we only committed like 1 error. And then Sunday, we committed 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of them was throwing the ball to first base, trying to pick off a runner. And a couple of times it worked, but a couple of times it advanced a runner to second base, and a hit to outfield or a drive line got that guy into the base, and ended up picked up a couple of runs. I think we're fine. I thought we hit the ball this weekend really well, and that's something that I would just hopefully like to see consistently move forward the last 2 series of the season for us. I know it didn't really tally up in the score box for us on Sunday, but we hit the ball pretty well. I think, some guys couldn't find their swings and were swinging too hard instead of just sitting back on the ball. But I thought we had a lot of power and speed on our balls, and just didn't get out the outfield sometimes. But I'm happy right now. I think this is a bit of complacency that we were able to get over. And A&M is, of course, the number 2 team in the country. Their 5 first batters are some of the 5 scariest batters in the country right now. So to be able to handle them, and honestly, I mean, losing Sunday, what was it, 5-0, 6-0? If I'm not mistaken, honestly, I don't remember. I got a little frustrated at the end, but it was a weekend that we can really build on if we really want to have any momentum going into the postseason.
Yeah, and like I said, you have to go essentially 3-1 this week. I think that's the minimum. You do have 1 game for margin for error, but that doesn't include losing to Southern Miss and then losing to LSU. If you lose 2, you're probably done for. But Ole Miss at least has a puncher's chance. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, we are going to continue our top 5s, and this week's top 5 Egg Bowl moments / games. We asked Daylan. He's a young guy. He's from Arkansas. We talk about that all the time, but we'll get his opinion on this as well. Now would be a good time to bet on the NBA and NHL because FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Now would be a good time to hammer that FanDuel over-under as well of 9.5 if you want to do that. You can also get Ole Miss to make the playoff at about -122 if that is up your alley. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads or money lines or props or even more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Everybody likes free. LinkedIn is not just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job who might be open for the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses, for instance, get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of posting their job. Hire professionals like a professionals on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses using LinkedIn cannot be wrong. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/LOCKEDONCOLLEGE to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that screaming and shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, Daylan, we're going to go straight over into the top 5. And this week's topic is the top 5 Egg Bowls, either games or moments in the history of the Ole Miss Mississippi State game. Now, everybody remember, Daylan is a young guy. He is a current Ole Miss student who grew up in Arkansas. So if he missed somebody, let's not flog him Okay, let's be cool about this. But we're going to ask him his top 5 anyway, because Daylan does a great job on the show, and he deserves to do the top 5. So, without further ado, here we go. Top 5 Egg Bowls, moments or games in history. Daylan, number 5.
Okay, this one is a little cliche, so people may jump on me for this one, and I don't care. I'm allowing you guys to, but it was Mike Leach's final win. I was a huge Mike Leach fan, and I never really saw him as like a rival of our school. I love Mike and his time even before Mississippi State, at Washington State, and of course at Texas Tech. I love Mike, and I know that I would have loved for us to win that game, especially how the end of the season last year kind of ended for us. But I was happy that Mike went out with the win for his final game. And it really hurt me to just see Mike go. But again, I love Mike for what he's done for the game, and I'm glad he got his final win as well.
Number 4.
Okay, so number 4, I put Tony Bridges' pick 6 against Dak Prescott in 2015. I thought that was a big moment. And yes, I'm young, but I did used to watch the Egg Bowl pretty religiously with my family every year around that Thanksgiving time of the year. And Tony Bridges was a guy that I think was really loved in Oxford and just played his heart out. It wasn't a 5-star talent, but he played really hard, and I think the fans loved that. And at that year, of course, that was the year that I know it kind of crumbled for State at the end of the year, but they went like 8-0 and then went into Tuscaloosa and it went down for them. But that was a big moment for us, and I think that was a kind of a moving forward moment for Ole Miss football at that time as well. Just kind of the weirdness we had kind of depicted from the last 2015 and kind of the last 5, 6, 7 years before that as well. And I think Tony Bridges in that game kind of made a name for himself a little bit as well, because kind of picking off Dak Prescott in that midst of that 2015 year was a big thing. And not only was it was a pick 6. So I love that moment. It's also a very rare moment. You really can't find it on the internet for some reason. But I remember it vividly because it was just something that my mom and I were watching the game. And at that time, I was still young, but I, of course, had Ole Miss in my hopes of maybe coming to in the near future. And so it was a fun game for me.
Yes, and we learned that game, never throw late to the outside. That's what we learned there. All right, number 3.
So number 3, I put Feed Moncrief. I was a really, really, really big fan of Dante Moncrief, and I think that his impact on the school is very evident. And I think that his time here is something that's a good beacon of where we are today. I think him and Bo Wallace just did a really good job playing together, and I think as well in the midst of that Egg Bowl, he had like 3 touchdowns that year in that game, and I think he had finished with like 20 throughout his whole career here at Oxford. But to put 3 touchdowns up against a state team is always fun for us to see, and it's always a good win against State, man. And I'll say this as well, as an Ole Miss fan, I don't even hate State. I just really dislike them. There are teams like I hate Auburn and I hate A&M. And I just had to throw that out there real quick. I don't hate State. I just dislike State, but other teams, it's hilariously enough, I just dislike really bad. I got that from a Alabama video that was like he really hated Tennessee and he didn't hate Auburn. If anyone knows what that is, but it's a funny video.
Yeah, and you have a situation. I was at that 2012 Egg Bowl on the field. So actually on field level, I got to see all of those touchdowns and the Feed Moncrief song and all that. That was a circus-like atmosphere that day. Very, very party-oriented in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium that night. All right, number 2.
This is before my time, but I'm still very aware of it, is the immaculate deflection. And just
I was there too.
The history between the teams that year, and as well that I know that State obviously doesn't play in Jackson anymore, but I thought that was a iconic time that State used to play in Jackson, and I just thought that was a good beacon for fans to kind of travel down to Jackson. But the immaculate deflection was something that's pretty notorious in the history of the Egg Bowl, and close game.
College football, honestly.
Yeah, and in a close game for, I think both teams needed it really bad, and just the thankfulness of God that the wind kind of blew that field goal away and not into the uprights for State, and Ole Miss came away with the win before my time, but I'm still very, very aware of it, how big it is for the history of the Egg Bowl.
Yeah. If you go back on YouTube and you see the highlights of it, it's actually David Kellum doing that call, going all the way back to 1983. Not to age David Kellum or anything, but yeah, he's been doing this a minute. All right, number 1.
So it is 2, but I know they're kind of notorious in the intertwine of each other. And although we lost in 2019, I put the DK Metcalf and the Elijah Moore kind of dog leg raise and peeing on the fans. I know we lost a game in 2019, but that moment is kind of just surfaced everywhere throughout national media. And I feel like whenever it's a rivalry week for college football, it's put everywhere. And you see it every year now between the both of them. And you got to love it, man. I think it kind of exemplifies what an in-state rivalry is and how much the players kind of get heated with one another and what it means to them. And I love the moment, man. Even if I wasn't an Ole Miss fan, I love the moment. I think it just exemplifies what football is. And it kind of reminds me of Randy Moss kind of, flashing his booty to the fans and Joe Buck kind of having a problem with it. But it's a fun moment. It's a notorious moment, too, that I think will just forever live within the Egg Bowl history. And it's two of our greatest, best receivers in the last couple of decades as well, with Elijah Moore and DK Metcalf as well. So that makes it even more funny.
Yeah, and the piss and the miss directly led to Lane Kiffin, which directly led to Ole Miss being the playoff conversation. It can be argued, like it probably will not be number one on my list when I do my show, but it can be argued that is the most important moment in the history of the Egg Bowl.
It can. And, some people looking on the outside in may think, well, what does that have to do with really Lane Kiffin and bringing him into if you think about it, number one, how vital Elijah Moore was to Lane Kiffin's, his starting tenure at Ole Miss. That moment, I think, exemplifies how to use different things and where today's football is in terms of recruiting, social media. So I agree with you, man. I think it's a very good point of what it takes to play with this school and how big that game is, whether it's in Starkville or Oxford for each team. And it's I love it because growing up in Arkansas, we didn't have an in-state rival really, but we had like LSU and I guess now Missouri. And so rivalry week is always the funnest time of the year for me.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you to the everydayers for making the show what it is. Daylan Flowers stopping by like he always does. Thank you very much, man.
Of course, man. Howdy, y'all. God bless.